everybody. Thanks for coming out. My name's Natalie, and I've been one of the main organizers in this rally that we're having here right now. And gee, here I am. A lot of people know me around town. They think I'm, people tell me that I look like a really happy person, that I smile and laugh a lot. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering why I decided to come up here and take a stand on such a controversial issue. It came to my attention about 3 weeks ago that 500,000 children are dead in Iraq. They're dead. They starved to death. They died of horrible diseases, actually very simple diseases such as cholera and diarrhea. And I saw some of this footage and I thought to myself, this is a really awful situation. And since these are such simple diseases, why do these children have to die? And then I started to do some research on the situation there, and I found out that there's an economic blockade on the Iraqi people, that they've been under these economic sanctions for the last 6 years. And that they're not allowing food into the country, they're not allowing medicine into the country, they're not allowing them to sell their oil. Personally, I've adopted the Baha'i faith as my personal spiritual choice, and we just got done doing a 3-week fast where we didn't eat from sun up to sundown. And this was the first year I did it, and in these last 3 weeks I learned a lot of things, and one of the major things that I learned was what it is to be a hungry person, what it is to be hungry, to really be hungry for a long period of time. And it's not a very good feeling. You get sort of a headache, and you just can't think, and you just can't do things, and your life spirit is taken away from you. And I think about the situation, and it makes me angry, because 6 years is a very long time to be a hungry person. And it makes me angry because it's not necessary for these people to be hungry, because they were living good lives before this. And it makes me angry because I think to myself that I'm an American, that all of you people out there are Americans. The United States of America is a body of people, and there's leaders of our country. These leaders that have somehow bought their way into power are representing me and representing you and our voice. And in international circles, America is really looked down upon, and they look down upon the American people as being a very selfish, gluttonous people. And I think also that karma is a really heavy factor here, that the energy that our country, that our leaders are putting out into the world is a really negative energy. And that me as a person, as an individual, to know that these things are going on, to know that these actions are being taken by my leaders, by the people that are supposed to be representing my voice, I'm appalled by it. And I decided to come out here today to say, no, I don't agree with this situation. I don't accept it, that this is not my karma. And I'm glad that you came out too. And I was just trying to get as many people as I could to come out here and to say, no, we do not accept this. This is not acceptable for our government to be starving these people. It's inhumane and it's immoral. So I wanted to read to you some of the statistics from the research that I've done. This is from the Ministry of Health, their statistics. It says here that this is in a 1-month period of time, that 5,000 children have perished because of malnutrition. In a 4-week span of period, there's 5,000 children. It says here that 1,957 children are starving from malnutrition. It says here that 1,481 children in a 4-week period have died from diarrhea. Why are the children dying from diarrhea in Iraq? It's because our government, when we went over in the Gulf War, we blew up all of their water purification systems. And this was a breach on the Geneva War Codes. After we got done blowing up all of their water purification systems, we put up an economic blockade, not allowing them to have any chemicals to treat their water with. Today, 90% of the water in Iraq is contaminated. What do you do when you don't have clean water to drink? What do you do when the children are dying and there's no medicine to give them? When you can't get them decent food? 70% of the food that the Iraqis were eating before this Gulf War happened was imported. And today there's a military blockade on all borders, not allowing any food in. And I wonder why the UN allows this to continue. Because they know that this is going on, and they say that they want to get to the leaders, but they see this continuing and going on, and they don't do anything about it. And it really just makes me wonder why they don't wake up. So we have some letters that we've written over on the table over there, and if people want to write that, we're going to march around town today with our signs, and we're going to go to the federal building and we're going to mail them. And let's see, we have some other speakers that want to come up here today, and we have a list also if anyone else wants to come up and speak their mind. And let's see, okay. And here's Neil Chase. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Now we're trying to keep some of these talks short. We've got about 5 people on our agenda, 5 minutes each, 10 minutes each, and we plan to be marching before 1. Well, today there's a cold wind blowing. All right. According to the Geneva Law Conventions of War, it is against, and it is a crime against humanity, for any government to target civilians in a bombing or a raid or a war. It is illegal to bomb a food storage facilities. It's illegal to bomb sewage plants. It's illegal to bomb water purification plants. It's illegal to target hospitals. It's illegal to target holy shrines and holy places. We were told during our Gulf War that we had such high technology of surgical strikes that we could shoot a Tomahawk cruise missile through somebody's window. That accurate. And as it turns out, there was not a hospital, a holy shrine, or anything in Iraq that wasn't spared the bombing in violation of the Geneva Conventions of Warfare. These things have been stated by the former Attorney General of the United States of America, Ramsey Clark, under the Kennedy administration. And because Kennedy and people like Ramsey Clark was against these type of international atrocities in their day, and they was against segregation in these things, we had a rash of assassinations in this country against great Americans like JFK, his brother Bobby Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. and other ones. Now we've got people here from all different walks of life today. I know we've got some veterans here that have been veterans in war, and also veterans honorably discharged for maybe non-wartime affairs. We also have people here that maybe have a Christian background. We've got some friends here that might have a Buddhist background or a Muslim background. And some of the friends here is Baha'i as well. But all of us have something in common, and that is to be for justice, to be for these rights for human beings. And we have to stand out and take a stand. The United States of America is not taking a stand. You can't point to a city in this country that's taking a stand. And Missoula, Montana is going to be a different situation. This is the first effort that we're having on this. Now, we were asked on our television program Friday nights at 7 o'clock on Channel 7. It's on every Friday. It's a live show. Why are you standing out against these sanctions which are killing babies in Iraq? Why aren't you standing out for something else? Well, when the communist empire fell, certain countries that banded together to escape communism, such as the Czechs and the Slovaks, said, well, now that that communist threat's gone, we'll go back to being the Czechs and the Slovaks, and they separated peacefully. In Bosnia, under Tito, he organized Bosnia, Serbia, and Croatia to form a united front so they wouldn't get swallowed up by Stalin. And when that communist bloc fell with the fall of the Berlin Wall, they wanted to peacefully separate back into countries. And the United States of America and the UN said they would only recognize Bosnia as a country if they disarmed. And we promised to protect them. And so they disarmed, and we didn't protect them. And 50,000 Muslim women were raped in rape concentration camps of genocide. And we spoke out against that when it was happening. But that's over with now. We can't help those women and the atrocities that was already committed in the past. But since we first read Ramsey Clark's letter on the air here in town, 4 weeks ago, 6,000 more children in Iraq have died, and they estimate another 1.5 million will be dead. We use depleted uranium in our weapons. Our nuclear power plants in this country is not just there to produce electricity. That's a byproduct. That's when these rods get so hot, we put them in water so it boils and it turns turbines, which makes electricity. But what we're doing is purifying this natural uranium to separate out the plutonium for nuclear weapons and the uranium-238. And what's left over is called depleted uranium. It's still radioactive, it's still poisonous, it's still dangerous. We sold it to our weapons manufacturers. And we scattered over 40 tons, or 300 tons an estimate has, over 80,000 to 600,000 pounds of this stuff all over the agricultural land of Iraq, and they can't grow crops there for 4.5 million years, according to these factual estimates. These are the type of atrocities that we're speaking out against here as a group in a united front. Now, one of those petitions up there is not going to Madeleine Albright at the UN. Madeleine Albright, well, she doesn't seem to be bright at all. She said she has no second thoughts about this. She seems to be some sort of cold-hearted Hannah when it comes to the lives of these children. And a lot of people is under the misconception that Saddam Hussein is responsible for harming these children. We've had sanctions on Cuba for 35 years, and they haven't budged Castro out of power. Now, I'm not pro-Castro, pro-Saddam, or pro-Islam, or any of these things necessarily. I'm pro-justice, and the people here together is pro-justice, and that's why we have to take a stand. If we mailed letters to Madeleine Albright,
do you hear me?
I'd throw them in the fire. But we're going to send letters to people that we think will speak out at this level. And the petition is a petition that we're going to send to Ramsey Clark so he can see that the people of this city want to have him come here. And he's considering coming here around April 22nd of Earth Day to speak to the people of Missoula. And if we can get this petition up to 1,000 or more signatures in the next coming weeks, we can probably get Ramsey Clark to come out here. And he's somebody that's so well respected and so highly understood, we could probably fill this lot up till it's packed and the people are outflowing in the streets if we get somebody, speaker like this out, instead of just the local yokels like all of us here making a stand. According to him, that there's a triple whammy. Number one was the bombing. And we claim that we went into Iraq because the Iraqis went into Kuwait and took babies out of incubators and threw their dead bodies on the floor. And this came out in John R. MacArthur's book, Harper Magazine, as well as 60 Minutes, that no babies were killed at all. That Naira, that testified to this, was not a Kuwaiti refugee. She was the ambassador to Kuwait's daughter, and she wasn't even in Kuwait when this happened. Yet when America heard babies were being harmed, they passed this in Congress to go to war, but no babies were killed. In Texas, they claimed David Koresh had molested children. The Texas Authority, according to Newsweek magazine, during that time investigated that and found no abuse. The only abuse there was when they used cyanide-type gas that was flammable on those people down there, and then the children were harmed. And now we have over 500,000 children that are really dying, that are dead, and 1.5 more to die, and people don't care. What's it all about? It's about oil. It's about getting that oil over there. We've got some speakers here that know about this that are going to be coming up after me that's going to talk about this oil situation and the greed for the oil. It's got nothing to do with anything but the oil. We put Saddam Hussein in power in the first place, the way the French financed our American Revolution and George Washington came to power with our ones. America financed Saddam Hussein and put him in power. He was our man in Iraq the way Noriega was our man in Panama. We paid for him. When the Ayatollah threw our man in Iran out of the Pahlavi Shah, we told Saddam that we were his ally in the war against Iran. When the Kurds rebelled against Iraq and America, we saw the Kurds as making treason on the U.S. and told Saddam to go ahead and use the poison gas we gave him to kill those people. And he's not against all the Kurds. The Kurds are provided for in the democratic constitution of Iraq. The vice president of Iraq right now is a Kurd. There's just so much misinformation, disinformation, and downright lies. It's totally sickening. Now, we're Americans. We don't want people overseas thinking Americans is a bunch of bigots and a bunch of greedy people for the oil, because that's not what America's about. Our Constitution says that God has endowed us with certain inalienable rights. The life, among them, the life to liberty, pursuit of happiness. Well, there's more than just that. Elimination of prejudice of all kinds. Equality between men and women. A universal peace should be allowed. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom of assembly. And America's not about these atrocities. Certain rotten apples in this country are spoiling the whole bunch. And they need to change their policy. And because this is America, we have a voice here in Missoula, Montana. And we can declare this city to be the city of peace. And if it means 100 of us walking out of that post office to post some letters, then that's what we're going to do. And if it means us getting Ramsey Clark to come out here to speak for us, then that's what we're going to do. Now, Eldridge Cleaver was just here in town, and he was speaking with some preachers. He said he couldn't resist to put out there the preachers is usually corrupt, especially when he's speaking amongst them. But he said that they made a mistake in the 60s when they burned the flag. They couldn't get people to listen to him. We're not burning the flag, we're waving the flag, we're saluting the flag, and we're defending our Constitution, and we want to make America that great nation it can be. And we want Missoula to be declared to be the city of peace, and we want our nation to stand forth in this. And whether we're Baha'i, Jew, Christian, Muslim, black, white, yellow, or red, Native American, we want our Badger 2 medicine, Holy Land, or Muslims that don't want their mosques bombed, we're going to stand together on this. Now, we've got some more speakers coming up. I've used up my 5 to 10 minutes, and thank you for listening. We have a teaching scheduled in the Liberal Arts Building on campus at room 105 at 8 p.m. every Thursday night. We've got more literature on this. I know a lot of it got taken up, and this is not stopping here. It's the first step for us. Last thing that I'd like to say is this. Don't forget to sign that petition to invite Ramsey Clark to our city. I think we got a song that my friend Victor Woods would like to sing for you now.
Well, we look back on the 60s now, and we think, oh boy, what a great time that was. But here we've got something again. And this next song is a protest song. Well, come on, all of you Americans, the UN needs their off the food, trying to put them in a good mood. And it's 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh. It's 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? Uh-oh. 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? What? Louder? Start over? Well, come on, all of you Americans. The UN needs your support again. Trying to keep the pressure on that dictator of Iraq, Saddam. We stopped dropping bombs, so we cut off the food. Comes in a good mood. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? I'll tell you, it's starvation. For millions of children run. And it's 5, 6, 7. Are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die. Well, come on, Wall Street, it's time to go. Gotta have that oil flow. There's plenty of money to be made as long as Iraq is out of the trade. Just hope and pray we drop the bomb, drop it on Iraq and Saddam. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? Don't ask me. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? I'll tell you, it's starvation. 4 million children run. And it's 5, 6, 7. Are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die. Well, come on, Clinton, you gotta move fast. The re-election's here at last. Gotta keep them from finding out what the sanctions have been really about. You know how an election is won is to blow them all the kingdom come. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? Know that. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? I'll tell you, it's starvation. 4 millions of children run. And it's 5, 6, 7. Are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die. Well, there's not exactly 300,000 of you people out there right now, but we're getting to that number. And if you want these sanctions to be lifted, you gotta sing out. 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? I'll tell you, it's starvation. 4 millions of children run. And it's 5, 6, 7. Are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die. Well, look at those mothers throughout that land with baby skeletons in their hand. Look at them fathers lying dead with American shrapnel in their head. Do we really want to drive the bank with a rocky flood in our tank? And it's 1, 2, 3. What are the sanctions for? I'll tell you, it's starvation. 4 millions of children run. And it's 5, 6, 7. Are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die.
Oh, okay. What's your master's degree? I don't know. Oh. Okay, thanks, Victor. That was really great. We've got another speaker coming up. His name is Dean Hennison, and he's got a master's degree in something. I'm not sure what it is, but he's writing a book related to the subject, and there he is. So we'll be right up here.
Howdy, brisk one. Yeah, I got back in '91 I completed a master's thesis titled The Political Economy of Middle East Oil, and so what I want to do is offer a little background on the oil situation in the Middle East, just some historical facts that will shed a lot of light on why the United States follows such a foreign policy that would starve babies. And basically in early 1970s, the British cut loose these little colonies of Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman. If you look at these countries, it's a Gulf, the GCC they call it, the Gulf Cooperation Council. These countries circle the Persian Gulf. And if you look at it on a map, it's a highly strategic setting, because basically the people that run these countries are British creations, the Al Sabah family in Kuwait being a good example, but every country in that area is ruled by a very small percentage of the people. Women don't vote. You know, it's a monarchy situation, and these are the people that the Seven Sisters of Oil are dealing with in that area. The Iraqi people, on the other hand, have a long history of being socialist and not wanting American or British oil involvement in their country. And this is the main reason that the United States targeted the Iraqi people for a war back in 1990. Now, Saddam Hussein is a different story. In 1959, he worked for the CIA to assassinate a man named Al-Qasim, who was a strong socialist nationalist leader in the Middle East, and he was actually working for the CIA, and he was hands-on. He was one of the assassins who killed this guy. And his Ba'ath Party is basically a fascist party. And in 1989, the U.S.-Iraqi Business Forum went to Iraq and began to privatize the Iraqi economy, try to privatize their oil industry, privatize their whole economy. Thousands of small farmers were wiped out. Everything went to agribusiness. The big U.S. multinationals moved in, and there was a little bit of a rebellion among the ranks. And so when the privatization didn't work, that's when the United States, I think, decided that they had to go ahead and lure Saddam Hussein into a war. And exactly right, he's another Noriega, because the guy is not a pretty picture. But basically, this history of resistance explains why the United States had to do this to Iraq. And what happened was, in 1989, the Kuwaitis began to push the border north with Iraq. There's a company called Santa Fe International, which was a CIA front company, which the Kuwaitis were using. It had horizontal drilling technology, to where they were drilling on the Kuwait. They were sitting on the Kuwaiti side of the border, but they were actually drilling horizontally into Iraq, into the Ramallah oil field in southern Iraq, which is the biggest oil field in Iraq. Now, since the Gulf War occurred and went down and everything, the Kuwaitis have actually been allowed to move that border north. So what used to be Iraqi territory is now in the hands of the Kuwaitis, and that's the whole South Ramallah oil field, which is this huge oil field. My theory on the sanctions, the reason the sanctions are happening, is what they want to do is they want to keep Iraqi oil off the world market until the multinational Seven Sisters can control it. And right now they don't. It's an Iraqi National Petroleum Company, which is a nationalized company, controls that oil. So they want to keep the Iraqi people from getting the profits from this oil. It's the same situation that's happened all over the Middle East. This is why Muammar Gaddafi is considered this demon in our country. I consider him one of the greatest national leaders in the history of the world, and the reason he's demonized in this nation is because he stood up to the Seven Sisters of Oil, and he would not allow them to use his people as cannon fodder. And so it's a very interesting history in the Middle East, and you know, we're living in Orwellian times, folks. Everything you hear is 180 degrees from the truth. Yugoslavia, you look at that situation, you look at the significance of oil in that situation, Sarajevo being the shortest route for an oil pipeline from the Middle East into Western Europe, very interesting. The fact that the Croats and the Muslims backed the Ustasha and the Nazis in World War II, and the Serbs, again, were the socialists who led Yugoslavia to become the strongest socialist nation on earth. And now they're being demonized, and we're led to believe it's a ethnic thing. I think it has a lot more to do with oil and a lot more to do with supporting these old money people in Yugoslavia. Now you got Cuba, you know, and these right-wing Cubans in Florida being allowed to provoke another nation into a war situation. These people should have been thrown in jail, and yet we come to their rescue. And so I guess what I'm saying is the sanctions against the Iraqi people. This is just another example of a U.S. foreign policy of rollback, and anybody that doesn't follow our ideology, which is basically multinational control of resources and over people, they get stomped. And we've got to see this in that context, and we've got to work to change the entire foreign policy of the United States to where we're allowed nationalist movements to flourish, and we don't crush them. We support the PLO, we support the African National Congress, we support people like Fidel Castro who are working for their people, actually. And I think we have to see it in that context, and I think these sanctions are just another example of the fact that we really are living in the belly of the beast, and we're living in a country where we have absolutely no democracy, and the people that running the show, it's the multinational corporations, they're bankers, and we've got to change that. So we've got to, you know, it's the same. We're dealing with Stone Container here. They're dealing with Aramco there. We've got to see the significance of that connection. We've got to see that the Iraqi people are our brothers and sisters, and we've got to continue to fight against this corporate hegemony over the whole planet, because it's coming on, it's coming fast, and we got to turn it back. We got to stand strong, and we got to keep fighting. And it's going to be an uphill fight, but we stand together. And I'm really glad you've shown up today. And this is just a good example of, you know, keep fighting, people. That's all I'm saying. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Dean. The next person on the list is Glenn Goldman, who wanted to come up and say something.
God almighty, it's cold. It's colder up here. I just have a couple of comments. Somebody asked the question, why are we so concerned about what's happening halfway around the world when we have plenty of problems here? My response would be is that what we're talking about is a policy of genocide. Now, it doesn't look like genocide. The policymakers in the United States learned an important lesson from Vietnam, and that is that if you go in and you slaughter civilians and you wreak havoc on civilian populations, the American public doesn't support it. So they had to come up with a different strategy. And that's what we're seeing today. But it is still genocide. That means masses of people are dying. And that's why I'm here today. As a Baha'i, I'm asked to speak out against injustice whenever it occurs. And if this isn't injustice, I don't know what is. Now, the other point I want to make, and I want to kind of follow up on something that Dean just said, let's take the history back a little bit further. Are the American people aware that Kuwait was actually part of Iraq in the beginning of the century? I don't think the American people are educated in that respect. Kuwait belonged to Iraq. It was a province of Iraq. And after World War I, when the Western powers gained control of the region, they carved up the region into controllable little domains. And it was very important to be able to control the area that is now Kuwait, because that's the mouth to the Persian Gulf. Very strategically important for the transportation of oil. Now, I had another thing to say, and it's going to come to me any second now. Okay. Yeah, got it. Thanks. Got it. The real sin of Iraq, you know, the pretext was that they invaded Kuwait. Yes, very, very bad. But the real sin is that Saddam Hussein used oil profits, and historically Iraq has used oil profits to help his own people. He pumped money from the oil profits into educating his people, into hospitals. I'm not saying the guy's a saint, but that's a major sin as far as Western financial interests go. You see what countries like Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and all those other little kingdoms do is that they pump their oil profits back into Western banks. Now, they like that. They like to have the money pumped back into their banks. That keeps the system well oiled, you might say. But Saddam Hussein had the nerve to build hospitals, and it's similar to the sins of Castro, you know, actually putting the people's interests before profits. And I think that's the real sin. So I'm glad to see everybody here today. Obviously, I think this is just a beginning, and I think we can keep the steam, keep the ball rolling. So long.
Yeah, right on. Thanks, Glenn. Let's see, the next person on our list here is Matthew Roser. He was a political science major, and I'm sure he's got something interesting to talk about. And if anybody else wants to get on the list to say something here, you can just come and tap me on the shoulder and I'll write it down, okay? Thanks.
Hello. They say that everyone knows that truth is stranger than fiction. Well, actually, truth is more powerful than a nuclear bomb. And if people don't know that, they will find that out. And I'd like to put this into some context here, that after World War II, the United States found itself as the only country in the world that was left the only industrialized nation in the world that was left untouched. Pretty much their industry was not bombed like Europe's was. And the European countries basically found their infrastructure, their cities, and everything was destroyed. And so the United States, for the first time in the history of the world, was the world's first superpower. And they controlled over 50% of the world's wealth at having only 6.7% of the population. And so what the National Security Council of the United States, the policy makers did, was they came up with a strategy to keep this wealth in the United States' hands, to keep this imbalance of power around the globe tilted in the favor of the United States and our industrialized economy. And so, and this is the strategy that they came up with was to destroy and wipe out any socialist movement that occurred anywhere on the planet. That's right, anywhere that the people started to actually think for themselves and to come up with policy that improved the standard of living for these people, the United States came down on them. They came down hard. Now, they sold this policy to the United States as containing communism. And they came up with maybe people might have heard of the domino theory. And this was, they told the people, well, if you have one country that goes communist, they're all going to go communist, and the world will go communist, and we can't have this. So that's why we're going into these small countries and we're destroying them. And they used this in Guatemala in 1954 when the CIA overthrew their government. And they used this in Vietnam, and they've used this in Central and South America all throughout the 70s and the 80s. And they've, this policy, the real policy is, though, that one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. That's right. They're afraid that if one of these small little piddling countries in South America, oh my gosh, if they start to actually kick the United States out, like Chile did in 1970s, and they kick the multinational corporations out of their country and let the people take control of their resources, well, this will have a ripple effect. And they're really worried about other countries like Italy, especially. Italy had a strong socialist movement. And they're worried that if Chile is able to improve the standard of living for its people and take control of their resources and their future, then Italy will be able to see this and say, hey, if they can do it, then surely we can do it because we're a much more richer and a much more powerful country. So what did they do? They sent the CIA down into Chile to assassinate Allende in a bloody coup. And then the U.S. marched right in and installed their puppet dictators. Now the U.S. says that they're for democracy, but that's not true. Because you see a lot of these dictators, they're fascist. And they don't care as long as they'll listen to the U.S. interest. And so this is the policy that the U.S. has been implementing since the 1950s, which is to stamp out any socialist movement, anything that does not let the United States control the resources of these countries. Because what they really wanted was they wanted basically to go into South America and control their resources, take their minerals, take their metals, take their oil, and that type of stuff out of the ground and use it for their multinational corporations to keep the power, the balance of power, and keep the money flowing in the U.S. companies' wealthy coffers. And this is why the sanctions are being used against Iraq, for the reasons that these other speakers have said. It's for the oil, and it's because Iraq has a strong socialist tradition. And so this would set a bad precedent, a bad example for those other countries. And so we're trying to destroy Iraq militarily, economically. And we're doing that with these unjust sanctions. And 100 years from now, they'll look back at this time and they'll say this area, this time that we live in is really the Dark Ages. And truth will prevail. Just like during the French Revolution, just like during the American Revolution, just like during the Magna Carta, the pressures of the world build up. And the United States has they have an abusive relationship with the rest of the world. And we use them. The rest of the world are the victims in this case. And just like sooner or later, these victims are going to rise up and overthrow these ones in power that have abused the rest of the world and imposed these awful, deadly policies of sanctions against such countries as Iraq that only want to improve the lot of their people. And so I just want to say that this is some of the context of why the United States pursue these policies. And here we have a media blackout. That is, we don't hear about this kind of stuff. And you have to really go and investigate in order to find out, because you won't hear it from Dan Rather, you won't hear it from Ted Koppel, you won't hear it from any of the network news stations, because they're corporations, just like the United States is run to, their policy is run to keep these corporations making their big profits. And profits are more important than people. But eventually the people of the United States and the world are going to rise up, and they're going to overthrow these people in power. And it's going to happen. And there's no way to stop it. It's inevitable. And if you look back at history, this is always what happened. So, and the people are going to realize that the world is but one family, and we are all humanity. We're all brothers and sisters, and there's no difference between Iraqis and Americans and Filipinos and the people in China. It's only these leaders that keep us separated and keep us oppressed. And so we must remember that it's up to us to stand out for these things and educate as many people as we can in order for the word to get out, that the people will not stand for this kind of behavior anymore, and it's eventually going to meet its downfall. And the downfall of these people and these policies will come sooner and quicker the more we get out there and educate humanity. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Let's see. We're going to have one more speaker here. We're going to have one more speaker, and then we're going to do our march because it's really cold, and then we're going to come back after we mail our letters. If anybody hasn't gotten their letter already, we're sending letters to the United Nations. There's a pre-typed letter over there that you can read and sign, and we're going to march down to the Federal Building and mail our letters, so we can have some direct action from this. So definitely sign the letters and get those organized. And also, we only have 40 signatures for Ramsey Clark to come out. So if you haven't signed the petition to get Ramsey Clark out here, he was the Attorney General under the Kennedy administration. He's a retired politician now, and he's really come out and started to speak out against the injustice in the world. We want to have him come out here and speak in Missoula. So please sign the petition. introduce our next speaker is Robert Peace Wright.
Thank you, Natalie. Thanks for coming out, everybody. It shows dedication to be here in this type of conditions. Shows that you love the children of the world. I just wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about the culprit. And the culprit in this situation is the United Nations, who has a goal that all these countries, like the United States, would eventually hand over their sovereignty to this United Nations. And there's a lot of people around the world have an interest in this and stakes because the UN is prophesied to come and do this. The Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, Baha'is alike all have prophecies exposing that the UN would come and do this. And this is found in the book, the Bible, where it talks about the beast. And I just want to spend a couple minutes exposing this beast. This beast is talked about in the book of Revelations, which is separated by about 600 years of time from the book of Daniel, which also talks about the beast. And it describes it as these parts of an animal. It's sort of abstract, but if you use your mind's eye, you can see this clearly. They both describe it the same way, and they use the animals as symbols for powers and nations that are relevant in the world today. For instance, both Daniel and Revelations, in their descriptions, say that the beast that comes in the latter days would have the feet of a bear. And this symbolizes the USSR, the Russian country. And it says that it would have the body of a leopard, which symbolizes the nation of France. It says that it would have the head of a lion. And this lion's head is the symbol of Great Britain. And both books also say that this beast would have the wings of an eagle. And this eagle symbolizes us, the U.S. And in Daniel it says that the eagle's wings would be separated from the lion's head. And this prophecy is fulfilled. In July 4th of 1776, we declared our independence from the lion's head, Great Britain. But today we have the beast flourishing live, ravishing the world with sanctions like this in Iraq. These four powers, the bear, the lion, the leopard, the eagle's wings, Russia, Great Britain, France, the United States, are the four leading nuclear powers in the world. Now on the UN, you have all the nations are represented, and you have 15 members that sit on the Security Council. And they make decisions such as putting sanctions on a nation like Iraq. But then only 5 of them have the veto power that can keep these sanctions from being lifted. Well, who's the 5th one? It's China. But China's not in this picture, and that's because Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick, took care of him when he went over there and gave him most favored trading status, so in trade for their vote. That's why China always abstains and they don't exercise their veto power. But we do have the 4 that are flourishing. And these 4 powers are the big pseudo-Christian nations that wield their power like an iron fist over nations like Iraq and keeping these sanctions on. So, that's pretty much it. My talk was supposed to be short, and I just wanted to show you a picture of this beast being fulfilled in the UN. One last thing is that this UN is prophesied by Nostradamus and in the book of Revelations to rise up into the sky in a ball of flame. The seat of the beast is the UN building in New York City. If you want to hear more about this, tune into MCAT on Friday nights at 7 o'clock, and we'll have an ongoing report on the Iran sanction situation. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, thanks, Peace. We have some more people that want to speak today, but the problem is it's really cold, and I know a lot of people out there are feeling it, and we really want to get these letters into the mail. That's the objective here. was so that we're going to have a march around town. We're going to go down to Circle Square and march back up to the Federal Building, and we're going to mail our letters. So we're going to do that, and we're going to come back here and allow some more people to speak. So if you want to come back with us and listen some more, or if you wanted to say anything, you're welcome to come up and speak also. But we're going to get moving on that right away. So everybody's got to grab their letters over there, and we'll get this done, and we can have some more speakers. Did you want to say something, Neil? Oh. Huh? Yeah, so we're going to get our letters and go for our march. Okay, thanks.
I got my letter. Where's yours?
Lots of days on the city. So, like, are you connected to the Peace Any connections with the I mean, this is like 20 years since there's a peace demonstration in school that you know?
I think this is KECI down there. Okay. Well, our rally began at high noon to have the sanctions lifted off of Iraq. That we've had sanctions on Cuba for 35 years, and it hasn't affected Fidel Castro at all. The sanctions, as an American policy, don't work. If we want to get rid of Saddam Hussein, we need to come up with a better tactic. These sanctions are doing nothing but killing over 576,000 innocent children. The sanctions only affect the poor and the elderly. They've never affected leaders. That because this is the United States of America, we have a chance to make a voice in this city of Missoula and declare that Missoula, Montana is a city of peace. That we're not in favor of governmental policies in our country that don't affect the supposed dictators we're to be against, but only affects those people that are innocent and caught in the middle of these politics. Now, something we didn't mention earlier was that the book of Revelation in the Bible, in Revelation 9:16, mentions that the four winds of destruction are bound up at the great river Euphrates, which flows through Iraq. Our government leaders claim to be Christian. Our American president puts his hand on the Christian Bible. According to Eldridge Cleaver and one of our local Christian ministers of the Methodist persuasion, they say that the Christian right is neither Christian nor right. Why does our so-called Christian government want to self-fulfill Armageddon prophecies? Can't they read the scripture that they say they believe in, that he puts his hand on the Bible to swear into office, that says the four winds of destruction are bound at the great river Euphrates that flows through Iraq? What is their thinking? Why are they driving America into this condition? Now, we've got our open mic, and we've got some power here, and we weren't able to get a few of our speakers to talk before we went to the post office. And now those people that are on the list that Natalie has is welcome to come up here for our open mic and speak for a few minutes. That according to Attorney General Ramsey Clark under Kennedy, these sanctions that are United States imposed through the UN is a crime against humanity. And we have a petition here for the people of Missoula to sign to invite the Honorable Ramsey Clark, a true American, to our city to give talks to educate the American people against these crimes against humanity. Over 40 to 300 tons of depleted uranium nuclear waste have been dumped on the agricultural farmlands of Iraq in violation of the Geneva Conventions of War to destroy the civilian population of that country. According to the facts, they will not be able to grow crops there for 4.5 million years. Why? The Bible talks about disturbing the oil and the wine. This is a war about oil in the Mideast that we would like to control. Iraq is a democracy, yet they become the enemy of America that would rather support the dictatorship of Kuwait and the Saudis and the other ones that will play ball by selling us the oil and depriving their own people. And there's many more facts that go along with this. Now, is Natalie here? I'd like to introduce you to Natalie Simpson, one of the main organizers of our Missoula rally here to have these sanctions lifted off of Iraq. Why don't we give her a big standing ovation? Here's Natalie.
I want to thank you all for coming out here today. We put a lot of energy into getting together a rally, and it looks like we had a good showing. I wanted to mention that we are the second group in the United States and the whole nation that has rallied up against this against the situation that's going on in Iraq. And we're definitely the first group the west of the Mississippi. So we want to keep it going. We're going to have, like Neil said, we're having a teach-in on Thursday night. And we want to keep other things going, like we're inviting Ramsey Clark out, and just to raise the awareness in our community. Right now we have another speaker. His name's John Geeson, and he wants to say something, so we're going to let him come up. If anyone else wants to say something, you can just come and talk to me, and I'll put you on the list. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to say that we live in the greatest country in the world. Our government's the greatest government in the world, but that doesn't mean that our government's perfect. And our government's very political. It's controlled by politics. It's controlled by elements that aren't the people in the country. The government leaders, many of them are corrupt, especially the ones right at the top. But that doesn't mean that our government in general is bad, or it doesn't mean that the people in this country are bad. In Iraq, they have a democracy. It's probably the best government in that part of the world. But that doesn't mean the leader of that country is worth a damn either. Saddam's done a lot of bad things. He's had a bad background. He still does bad things. But that doesn't mean the people of Iraq are bad. That doesn't mean the government of Iraq is bad. And we can't let the fact that there's a bad individual there justify what we're doing with the sanctions and the killing of the young and the innocent in that country. No more than we can sanction it in this country, in the Waco and Ruby Ridges of this country. So the people of that country shouldn't suffer for what that leader's doing, and if we have a problem with that leader, we have to address it in a different way. But it's not for the babies and for the children and for the mothers and for the populace of that country to suffer. And that's what's happening today. That's unjust. That's what we're against. I know it's cold out there, so we'll let somebody else have his say. Thank you.
Are you going to sing a song again? Okay, thanks, John. Our good friend Victor Woods is out here, and he wrote a song for us. Some of you heard it before, but I think he's going to sing it again.
Try to keep. Whoops. Just turn it down. Can't even hear it now. Come on, Wall Street, it's time to go. And gotta have that oil flow. Try to get Iraq out of the game so we have the things that we want in the trade. Want to keep I'll tell you it's starvation,
4 million of children. And it's 5, 6, 7, are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die. Come on, Clinton, you gotta move fast. Re-election's here at last. Keep them all from finding out what the sanctions have been really about. You know how an election is won is to blow them all the kingdom come. And it's 1, 2, 3, what are the sanctions for? I'll tell you it's starvation, 4 million of children. And it's 5, 6, 7, are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die. Well, come on everybody, if we want to get these sanctions lifted, you gotta sing louder. And it's 1, 2, 3, what are these sanctions for? I'll tell you it's starvation, 4 million of children. And it's 5, 6, 7, are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die. Look at those mothers throughout the land with baby skeletons in their hand. Look at the fathers lying dead with American shrapnel in their head. Do we really want to drive to the bank with Iraqi blood in our tank? And it's 1, 2, 3, what are the sanctions for? I'll tell you it's starvation, 4 million of children. And it's 5, 6, 7, are they the ones to hate? Well, now's the time to wonder why the UN just let them die.
Hi, I'm Joe, and I wanted to talk a few minutes. As a Baha'i, I am against war. I believe the peoples of the world must take counsel together in all matters, and that this consultation will prove to be a lamp of guidance and a source of understanding. I do not believe in a world order founded on war crimes and forcefulness. I believe the highly educated people of Missoula, Montana must be the first to stand up and reject the concept of ruling with forceful and aggressive qualities. Well, for these will lead to nothing but war and bloodshed. I believe we have entered into a new age of understanding and enlightenment. And last night, Eldridge Cleaver, the former head of the Black Panther Party, which played an integral role in impelling the civil rights movement into the forefronts of the arena of thinking people, asserted that the leadership of this nation has been hijacked by corrupt and selfish interests. I believe we must embrace the force of compassion, which is the law of life, that mankind must begin to understand that with or without his consent, eventually every knee will bow and every tongue will confess to this law that compassion rules all creation with a mighty force that cannot be put down. I believe that now is the time to stand up and defend this law. I believe we must arm ourselves with education and enlightenment, and with swords of the tongues of our mouths, go into the battle and defeat these dark forces of war that are coming out of our nation. That we must begin to persistently and consistently apply a spiritual compress for the healing medicine of the ills of the sick world. That right now, the government of the United States is leading us into a great war such as has never been seen on this planet and will never be seen again. This great Third World War has been prophesied and considered to be an imminent and an inevitable fact by every learned scholar on this subject. That it is no longer a question of whether we will have a war such of this nature, but a fact of when. While our government leads us into war, I believe that simultaneously and at the same time, this highly enlightened but largely silent American populace
is leading to the world into the greatest peace that this planet has ever known. And this peace is the golden age that has been prophesied and hoped for by every religion of the past, present, and every religion on the planet, from the time of Socrates to the time when Columbus crossed the ocean blue, and from the time of the Hopi Nation overshadowed this continent to the time of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. It has been known that this great nation would be as a phoenix bird, which, at the end of its life, would dive into a fire of its own creation and emerge a new and more highly evolved and spiritually enlightened nation that will commence to fulfill its mission, which is to lead the world spiritually and into a time of peace and felicity, and to canopy the world with a world order that is founded on two pillars of reward and punishment, and which is illumined by two luminaries of consultation and compassion. And like Gandhi, who led a great but gentle movement against the dark forces of his age, we too must now unite, but with peaceful resistance, make a statement that we are not in favor of the United States leading the way to perpetrating war crimes in the name of an international peacekeeping force, quote unquote, called the United Nations. We must, on the one hand, be the well-wishers of all the governments and nations and sincerely hope for their progress and advancement. We must show utmost sincerity and goodwill toward all nations and refuse to act contrary to the laws of any government. But at the same time, we must realize that both the governed and the governors are in great danger, that we must be the well-wishers of the government as we warn the people of the realities that surround them. Einstein said this age is characterized by a perfection of means and a confusion of goals. Our goal today is peace, the most great peace. We have so perfected the forces of war that we can now destroy an entire nation in one day. War is disease and dissolution, but peace is health and construction. War is a factor of derangement and discomfort, whereas peace and brotherhood bring security and consideration of human interests. This is especially pronounced today, now that the science of killing has been perfected. The balance must now be shifted. We can see the forcefulness in which man is superior is already lost its influence. And the mental alertness, the intuition, the spiritual qualities of love and service in which women are strong are beginning to gain ascendancy. And therefore this new age will be an age less masculine and more permeated with the feminine ideals, or to be more exact, an age when the masculine and feminine are more balanced. And then and only then will humanity become like a phoenix bird, which was originally put on the Great Seal of the United States, and will rise like a bird with two wings, one female and one male, and be as a little child that leads all nations everywhere into a time when peoples can rejoice as they beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and that when the mothers of the earth can praise the living God, that their sons will no longer have to learn war anymore.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful seeing all of you out here. My father and his brothers are World War II vets. I'm a Vietnam vet, 3 times worth, over 2.5 years. I'm here not because I was a vet, not because I saw what I saw. I'm here because this is an injustice, a terrible injustice that's going on.
You don't have to see babies with distended bodies, bloated tummies from malnutrition. I saw that. You don't have to see little girls running off into the rice paddies, their body covered with napalm on fire. You don't have to see the torn bodies. You don't have to see this kind of stuff to know that it happens and it exists and it's been going on. And after all these years, my first protest march, when before it was the younger people of your age who were protesting against what I did. Now I'm out here for my first protest march, and I get to protest and do this march against those things that are terribly unjust that I saw in a smaller degree, on a lesser scale in Vietnam. 3 different damn times. My son is here, he participated in it. My daughter is here, she participated in it, and I hope I don't embarrass her, even my ex-wife participated in it. So this is the first time for me, and it was worth the wait. But I'm trying to tell you, you don't have to hear the screams, the yells, the cries, the sobbing. You don't have to smell the burning flesh. You don't have to smell the rotting bodies to know what is going on. Just because it's not on TV in front of your eyes every day at 5 o'clock and 11 o'clock, to know that it is happening, and that's why we're here. It was worth the wait. Thank you.
Wow, well, thank you for coming out today. I don't think we have any more speakers unless somebody wants to run up here right now and speak their piece. We're going to shut it down, but I feel like it was a really successful rally, and spiritually I feel a lot better now that I know that I've done something to speak out against the crimes of humanity. And although there aren't very many people here right now, I just want to remind us all that the All-Wise and the All-Seeing is watching us in everything that we do, and that speaking out against these injustices, even though it may not seem like a lot, it may not seem like we have an immediate effect, in the long run, this will go down in history, that we were the first group, the west of the Mississippi, to speak out against the actions that were taken here, and I want to thank you all for coming.